Welcome to the Startup Grind.
Finally, we have a tradition in Startup Grind where we like to welcome our speakers very warmly. So if all of you could stand up and give a really loud, big, warm round of applause for Joachim. So thank you so much for having us tonight, all of your friends and my friends and the Startup Grind community here. So tell us all a little bit about you, your background.
I talk super fast, right? I need a haircut, but no, on to interesting stuff. Hello everyone, thank you so much for making out, and thank you Startup Grind. Like, come on guys, a little bit for God's sake. So, my name is obviously Joachim, and the company is Hello Innovation. And you're probably wondering, who the heck is this guy if you don't know me, right? You talk really fast too, again, all that kind of stuff. But what we do, first and foremost, is Hello Innovation is basically a company where it's pretty cool, right? Everyone wakes up and you pop out of bed in the morning and you want to do stuff that you basically never feel like you're actually working, right? That's kind of what the dream started with. And what we do as a company is we build disruptive products that basically move people. So you're probably going, all right, what the hell do you actually do? So it's a weird combination. It's like literally taking creativity, taking design, taking technology, taking the different practices around that, and essentially mixing it with our passion and saying, excuse my friends, but what's the shit that we will actually want to create that no one's actually doing? And when you actually summarize all this different stuff that I'm rambling with a little bit, we end up creating pretty cool products that actually, at the end of the day, they go way farther than what we could ever imagine because it's actually making a difference throughout the world. So I guess if you connect all the dots, we now have over 30 million people a month using our products. We have 7 different companies ranging from literally all the way on funerals, all the way over to basically even drones. You probably saw and actually throughout the company here. But we basically build products that build emotional connections. We build products that are disruptive. We build products that actually move people, but most importantly, products that actually we're passionate about. And that's kind of the highest level overview I can possibly give you guys. And it's been a long week, so I'm literally exhausted. And but yeah, it's cool.
All right, thank you. So tell me about how you got started. How did Hello Innovation come about?
All right, so I was a weird kid, and kids were asking for a computer, basically trains, and I asked for a computer. Tandy TL 1000 computer, Radio Shack, kind of weird place, right? So next thing you know, go to talk my parents into getting one for Christmas, and I ended up getting the computer, and I was like, wow, I could do some amazing stuff with this, right? My parents had to kick me off the thing all the time, and I lived in a small town of like 5,000 people, and even worse than that, we actually lived in the country, so it's actually nobody around us. So what I decided to do was I was like, oh my gosh, I can do some really neat things with this thing. So next thing you know, we started up basically I asked the kids in school that were a lot older than me to go knock on doors that lived in the city, and we started selling like these online greeting banners and stuff. Next thing you know, our biggest week we made like $1,800, made USA Today, family shut the business down because they didn't want me having a taste of money at that age. And fast forwarding through a whole bunch of other crazy stuff throughout that, I come into high school, and next thing you know, basically did some pretty cool stuff with the internet, and had some more stories come out, made me sound way freaking smarter than I actually was. And it was called a story called Web Wizard. It was in like USA Today. And next thing you know, a phone rings, and it was a funeral home. They said, hey, can you help us, basically change, reinvent funerals? And I was thinking back in my mind going, oh my gosh, I've got companies like, some pretty reputable ones out there calling us to help us reinvent their business and take this thing called the internet and figure out how to make products that turn into quote unquote, I think they said gold. And I remember thinking, oh my God, corporate places, kind of, really neat big names, cool stuff, but they're so driven by money. And it was like, money's great, but it's not the real big driver that really makes you pop out of bed in the morning a lot of times. I think at first when you don't have it, you want it, but then essentially once you start connecting dots though, it's like there's a greater good. So funeral home calls up and I'm like, death, dying, odd, weird, creepy, this is kind of crazy, right? And when I thought about it though, and I was like, all right, do I work with these huge Fortune 50 companies and help them create some really cool stuff? Or would I rather actually change what the world thinks of a funeral, right? And at first I wanted to run away. But the crazy part was that I thought in the back of my mind going, I'm not the only guy that thinks a funeral shouldn't be creepy, odd, and weird, and everyone has to go through it in life, right? I mean, there's something undeniable. But what I thought is that I'm not the only one that's thinking this, and a funeral's not for the deceased, it's for the people they leave behind, right? Pretty common sense, they're gone. So what I said was, why don't I actually create products that actually can help people celebrate the moments they live in their life, help them celebrate the life somebody lived, and actually take all these amazing things that somebody's life can be characterized for and literally turn what the world thought of a funeral upside down. So we started there. Next thing you know, the business snowballed. We made Barbara Walters 2020, and literally 8,000 funeral homes later, the business blew up, and we started creating everything from like the first online guest book. You guys ever see like an online guest book with somebody passed away? That's why I started when I was just out of high school, and then next thing you know, at first everyone thought I was even crazier than I was, because they're going, why the hell would you actually do this in funerals? Next thing you know, like literally every person that passes away almost throughout the world has been using this, and then took the monies from that and kept reinvesting in other businesses that could essentially connect with consumers. And that's kind of been the big high-level overview.
So how old were you when you started the banner business?
11 years old.
11.
Yeah.
Okay, and then how old were you when you got into the funeral business?
19 years old, right? It's didn't come from a fancy background. I didn't have essentially VC backing, venture backing. Basically, we were bootstrapped from day one. I lived at home till I was 26 a few years ago, and invested every freaking dollar we actually had in the business. And essentially, my theory was that if I could create, a great product, and if I could put, essentially, I'll take a step back. When you're building a business, right, they typically say you have to have maybe a team of 8 people, we'll say, as your core team. Typically, when you get venture capitalist funding, you build a team overnight. Is the big pitch on that. So what my play was going, all right, I didn't want to sell myself out to answering to investors, which, by the way, works great for some people, just wasn't for me. And what I said to myself was, I'm willing to grow a little bit slower, and if I could figure out a way, because I love challenging stuff, and then typically every business book says you got to do it this way. I'm the guy that says, can I sail the waters that no one's going, and is there a faster way to get there? So what we ended up doing was, I said, all right, if there's 8 people I need, I'm going to take all the monies that I'm basically bringing in, and I'm going to take 6 of those jobs, right? And you're probably going, how the hell are you taking 6 of those 8 jobs? Well, it was actually a little crazy thinking back. But I literally would travel the country, I would design products, I would actually do the marketing, I would actually do the sales, I would actually knock on doors, code things at night, helping guys with stuff. I wasn't that great at that, but connecting a lot of dots. And eventually the idea was, if I could have essentially creating a great freaking product, I could create great customers. If I create great customers, I create revenue, right? Pretty simple formula. And what happened was I take the unique abilities I have, right, and then the things I really stink at that I was doing, and I said, how do I keep hiring people to take away the things that I'm not that good at so I can focus on things that actually are going to drive the business? So fast forwarding, we essentially start getting a lot of traction, and a lot of traction, a lot of traction, a lot of traction. And the weird thing is, if you're thinking in the back of your mind going, why did I show up to see this funeral thing, right? It's not that. Actually, it's the biggest misconception. Our business is not even remotely close to our business is not based on building the business on funeral homes. It's actually based on how do we make amazing product that literally can impact the world and move people. And you can walk away at the end of the day going, holy shit, I was the one, I was part of the team that actually did this. We changed what the world thought and how they actually interact with one of the darkest moments in their life. And the next thing you know, the theory is that everyone has to go through this, and if we can actually use that business, this platform that we built around memories and telling people's story, that we could essentially build a relationship with consumers, and that's what our secret sauce was that made us, I think, a lot more successful than most companies, is that we essentially said, all right, there's 20,000 funeral homes, right? And they don't like change, they don't want to spend a lot of money, and if you think most businesses are traditional, for gosh sake, they're like a giant cruise ship. They can turn, but they take a freaking long time to turn, right? So the idea is that we're going to use that channel to help them connect with consumers, because everybody else in that industry was actually saying, hey, Mr. Funeral Home, what do you want us to do to help you build a product? And I'm a huge believer in life that not too many people know what they want in a product. You can't ask somebody, do you want, what do you actually want, and I'll build it, right? If you ask somebody from a survey, tell me what you want, I'm going to build it. That's a vanilla product. Right? That's a Me Too product. The best, I believe, products in the world don't come from that. They come from somebody saying, what is it that I would want? What is it that actually I believe in? And you got to be ridiculously stubborn, pig-headed, call it what you want, and literally live and breathe that damn thing every single day. And if you're probably not the only one out there that actually thinks this product's great. There's probably a good chance that others like you. And it's kind of how it snowballed.
All right, that's a lot of information.
Yeah, it's too much. Yeah.
So now we know what you did to build up the company. What does a normal day look like for you?
Oh man, so we've got, I think, over 100 job openings right now, collectively throughout. We've got this office here. We have an office in Brazil and another office opening up. We've been scattering it in different places right now, so it's actually almost like a game of bingo, guessing where it's going to be next. But So the challenge is right now, the majority of my time is I'm not like a traditional CEO counting numbers and things of that nature. Yeah, I love them. Usually there's, and I apologize by the way, all these screens you guys see throughout the office. If you stop back any other day other than maybe this week, you'll see literally there's dashboards and data being shown everywhere you walk. So we're in this bad haircut phase, we like to call it, right? Where we're actually building new systems and actually upgrading stuff. And unfortunately, this event was happening at the time. But the point is I spend my time building stuff. I actually spend my time literally, I'm like Batman, I like to think sometimes. I go in my cave and I pretty much like to create products that actually I can be proud of, the things we're passionate about. So majority of my time is spent building the products, working with teams, working with creatives. And the other side of it though is really a heavy effort on pulling together the actual systems and the recruiting efforts. I mean, it's one of the biggest, hardest things I thought that I never thought we'd actually go through as bad as we did is that, obviously finding great people is one thing, but finding remarkable people is ridiculously hard. And unfortunately, it eats up a lot of freaking time. So that's what we're spending a lot of time right now doing.
Okay. So, and what is the relationship with Brazil? I know we have a lot of Brazilians working here, and you said now that you have an office there.
Yeah. So we were living in a small town, right? About 45 minutes north of here, St. Clair. And I never built the business, right? It was hard enough getting people to want to come to Michigan sometimes with the weather, let alone go to like the middle of nowhere in St. Clair, Michigan. But so we had a huge virtual team, and we never hired people based on zip code. We had to force ourselves into hiring people based on talent. So essentially, we sought out and said, who's the best people in the world? I used to go to like Barnes & Noble years ago, and literally I would read books, and I'd look at the author at the back of the book, and I'd say, if this guy's wrote the book on this, he's got to be pretty damn good. So next thing you know, we end up contacting, I would go home literally and stalk the guy, and next thing you know, he's working for Disney during the day, but at night, for instance, I would say, hey, I can't afford you full time, but can you work for us when you're not working for Disney? And next thing you know, I started building relationships, and I was hiring amazing people, literally from some of the best companies in the world. So next thing you know, I connected one dot to another dot and ended up meeting different people in different areas, and it happened that there was a pretty big talent pool of guys I got connected with that I've been super lucky. A lot of them are standing here right now, from literally Brazil to Italy to Argentina to, all over the world, Europe. We've had people from everywhere that we've literally moved here to Detroit, and Brazil's been a really cool thing for us.
All right, and so since the rest of the world sees this, tell people why Detroit.
Yes. So that's a cool topic. So we've never been, from day one, right, I love like the whole challenge, right? The idea of trying to do things that others are like, no way, right? There's no way to do this. And Detroit was like, we could go to any city. People ask us all the time. I had CNN fly in like literally 10 years ago, and it was a funny story. I kept telling my parents for like literally weeks and weeks and weeks that CNN's coming. They were like, okay. Next thing you know, they kept canceling, right? So I looked like an idiot, even bigger, crazier one. But so next thing you know, the Aaron Brown shows up, and he says, I think it was like, beep, are you in the middle of nowhere? I had to drive by cornfields and cows and all these things. Why? You could be anywhere, kid, with the things you're doing. And it was, at the time, the same theory of, I think, the Detroit connection. It was basically that, we could go anywhere in the world, I guess, for that matter. And the difference would be, yeah, we could do some really cool stuff. Yeah, we could work with some really cool people. But at the end of the day, the level of impact was really what drives us. Would never be the same. We can actually, at the end of the day, hang our hat and say, we were part of something that was way bigger than what any of us ever thought possible. It's greater than even the cause of what fuels us internally, right? And that to me is, if you take away the fluff, you take away everything else, it's cool. You can actually look at it and say, you know what, we made a freaking really big difference, and look, hopefully we can inspire a few people actually doing stuff along the way as well. So it's pretty neat.
All right, thank you. What would you be doing if you weren't here right now?
Well, I'd love to tell you a different answer. It sounds a lot cooler probably right now, but there's a lot of people here that are calling me out bullshit. So I'd probably be leaving work in a few minutes, maybe around 8:30, 9 o'clock. Hopefully, I wish I was leaving a lot earlier, but no, we've been, I think it's funny. I'm not going to kid anybody for a second that, we've been very fortunate, but extremely lucky and humbled to be as lucky as we are. And the thing about it is, when you have one business, right, you have to work your ass off. When you have two businesses, you work multiple asses off. When you have, essentially 7 businesses in different industries, it's almost unrealistic, right? And the point is that you have to live and breathe it to get that machine to work, to get that thing to work, to get the right people, to get the culture, to get everything that it takes to connect all those dots. So the bottom line is, you have to work a little bit more than you want to at sometimes, right? But I think this is actually, the coolest thing of the whole thing, though, is that we literally, when back to my story a little bit earlier, is that we never decided to take venture capitalist funding. We never decided to take any, conventional funding, and we've been debt-free from day one. The point is, though, that we can invest, which is huge. We can invest in making products that are not just right for right now, but the right products for the future. So if we had investors, they would be actually telling us, guys, you've got to actually, basically make this product because the investors want the return on it right now, and essentially it would lead us to doing things that maybe are not the best for our customers, or not the best for the business. I mean, I'll tell you a story that will probably entertain a few people in the room here. Last year alone, I turned down $15 million in business. So most people, when they hear that, right, they think you're crazy, you're nuts. Traditional bankers would want to choke me. If we had investors, I think they probably would have threw me out the window by now. But the point is that being that we stayed so committed to, basically, when you got to work the kind of hours I do, there's a reason. It's not the money. It's that literally, I think the best brands in the world and the best companies, they're fueled from what actually jumps you out of bed in the morning, right? So if you think of what keeps you up at night, you leave here and you go, oh my gosh, I can't stop thinking of that, right? Or you wake up in the morning, you can't wait to run out the door to start doing something. When you can take that inner, passion and that thing that fuels you as a person, I'm not talking business, I'm not talking money, I'm not talking anything more than literally what is that thing inside of you, right? That excites you to walk with that step, that snaps your fingers, does what it does, right? Or whatever it is that actually excites you as a person. Take that and learn to translate that into a business. And once I figured out how to do that, then it became just a game. And it's I think I talk about the doom and gloom a little bit, right? You got to work your butt off and do all that, but at the end of the day, you don't feel like you're doing it. You're actually doing what you love to do. And for God's sake, somebody asked us I think it was like a month ago. Somebody said, why'd you get involved in drones and spend over $1 million in this stuff? And I said, basically, I started trying to explain that, obviously the future of flight, we build disruptive stuff. This is kind of out of the wheel of things that we actually really do, I guess, at the end of the day. And I thought about it, and I go, you know what? And the guy looked at me and he goes, because you wanted to, right? And the reality is that we try to surround ourselves every single day here with doing the things that actually we're excited about, the things that we're passionate about. And when you do that shit, you're not working. You're actually fulfilling this greater cause. It's a pretty cool thing.
Okay, so you mentioned the funeral industry, and then you mentioned the drones, but you said there's 7. So what are the other ones?
So, and again, by the way, I completely apologize to you guys. I'm a little, if I seem like I'm rambling even more so than I usually do, it's been an extremely long week. But so started in the funeral stuff, right? And I told you guys our business wasn't built on going after funeral homes. It was built on getting to consumers, right? There's 20,000 funeral homes, and essentially they don't like change. They don't want to spend a lot of money. But what we did realize was that if we could actually use the funeral home to connect to, essentially tons of consumers, we could figure out how to build a business faster. And that was like the biggest method behind it, right? And where I'm going with this story is that, essentially Hello Innovation builds products that connect with people from the time they're born to the time they pass away. If you think of the key moments in someone's life, there's those key things in someone's life, like literally you're born, next thing you know, you go to grade school, next thing you know, you have your first girlfriend, next thing you know, you have birthday parties, you get married, you've got kids, grandkids, et cetera, et cetera. Those are the key things that actually take up someone's life. And the problem that's happening in the world, we think right now, is that there's so much digital clutter, right? I mean, think how many things you can grab like content from. You go to you remember the old MySpace days, right? Facebook's gotten a little bit like that. No offense, Facebook, we like you guys. But there's a lot of digital clutter. So what our theory and what we're doing now is that essentially where the businesses go is that we used the funeral channel to help make a huge difference and change what the world thought of a funeral, right? But the difference is, as I told you guys, we do this we build products that emotionally move people from the time they're born to the time they pass away, right? Think of it like a spoke. So the weird thing is we started at end of life. Most people start when they're born and they actually go forward in life. We actually went backwards. We started at end of life and now we've worked our way backwards all the way literally to the time a baby's born. And I guess the most blunt way of saying it to you is funerals, and went to then e-commerce. We said, all right, what if we could change how the world buys things? And we partnered up with literally the largest e-commerce vendors and suppliers, did some really disruptive stuff, built like this multi-storefront system. Fancy way of saying we built a store that we own, we operate, that we fulfill, that we do everything with, that we can plunk on somebody's website, right? Think of an internet business, by the way, really basic. Traffic, conversions. You have those two things, right? That's how you build an internet business pretty quick. You have to have traffic, you gotta get people to your site, you have to have people convert and do the desired action once they get there. So our theory was, all right, how do we actually do what no one's ever done with stores? So basically, if we own eyeballs in different industries, and we said, all right, if we know why the people are going there, for instance, we'll use funerals as a small example, they're going there to share memories. They go there to find out about a death that's happened. They go there to support a family and let them know they care about them, at days and such after the funeral happened, to support the family and friends. So we said, all right, if they're going there to share memories and such, what if they could actually, in a single click, basically purchase anything from the largest selection of sympathy gifts, flowers, same-day delivery, floral networks, all this kind of stuff, but from our store, from basically authenticating through Facebook, we then also know that all their friends, we know everything that's happening with basically their friends' events, all these different things, and essentially what happened is, in 16 months, we built the 5th largest florist in the world. So it works, this model works. And then we took that model, and we started basically, you guys can see where I'm starting to go with this, by the way, and if you think we actually went into this just for sympathy flowers, I can promise you that's not us. It's built on getting to basically consumers, solving a big problem, and working our way back from literally funerals to e-commerce to we're building an event marketplace is probably the biggest thing that we're doing right now, I would say. And that's essentially, we're about to change how the world plans, buys, sells any type of event in life. Amazon started with books. We started at not funerals, but celebrations. And essentially, we're working our way upstream into weddings, birthdays, and any kind of special event in someone's life. So now think of how hard it is to plan a wedding, how hard it is to plan a birthday, how hard it is to plan any event, right? We're going to basically allow people to actually visualize it, collect the ideas, organize them, and then purchase completely online. And we've even had everyone from the ex-CEO of Disney at this office here. It's pretty cool. We've got literally verbally over 3,000 spoken for locations that could essentially help catapult this thing pretty damn quick. We're also investing a ton right now with drones, right? That's the other side of the space. And once you actually start connecting all the different dots, it's about events, it's about moments, it's about those key things in someone's life is really where our sweet spot is.
So you mentioned that part of what keeps an entrepreneur going is figuring out what gets them out of bed every morning.
Yeah.
So what gets you out of bed?
Point blank. The thing that gets me out of bed is doing shit that everyone else thinks is impossible. I think that's maybe not the best answer, but that's the God's honest truth. It's doing things. It's funny. My girlfriend was reading a book the other day that was kind of inspiring there to me. It's a designer, and one of the quotes he has in there is like, I hate minimalism. I hate Baroque, right, styles of furniture and things, but I love them both together. And it's kind of a weird analogy, but at the end of the day, when you connect the dots of it, I like taking things that other people maybe would do. Everyone does something this way, and other people are doing things this way. And really, my big thing that drives me is not just making stuff that is, completely different, for God's sake, but making stuff that actually I want, that I think nobody's actually doing. Because at the end of the day, as I said earlier, no one woke up one day saying, I need an iPod, I need an iPad, or anything like that. You've got to create what people need because they don't know it. And they don't know how to sometimes execute that, tell that story, or bring that product together. And I think the best products in the world, and the thing that actually puts fuel in our blood, is let's do the shit that no one else has actually done. Let's do the stuff that actually we want. And let's not be afraid of actually doing anything more than what we believe is the right way to do it. And we obviously study data, we analyze data, and we figure out how to make smart decisions. But to be completely honest with you, we build stuff that we want. So if it's not enough motivation for somebody, for God's sake, it's pretty cool when you get to wake up every day and you get to pop out of bed and you get to go to the office and actually do things that's almost like a playground. And then at the end of the day, you walk away and you realize that you're touching 30 million people a month with products. It's pretty cool. And it's pretty neat. It's pretty humbling. So.
What is your single most memorable moment as an entrepreneur so far?
Wow. So we built video software that changed, I think, that was the second product I built that basically allowed people to create these like Hollywood-like movies, right, of people's life. And that was one of the probably coolest things. You see those old internet commercials where you see the screen, you see orders starting to pile in, next thing you know, right? And we literally were like, I was maxed out completely on credit. My brother's back there somewhere. I literally used to use his credit card nonstop trying to fund the company as much as I could because I didn't go any other route. And so I basically had to make or break, right? I put every single dollar I had in this stuff. I literally lived and breathed it. And I said, if this thing doesn't hit, don't know what I'm going to do to cover payroll. And basically, I am like investing every single dollar I had in this stuff. So you can imagine, you launch a product, you see the stuff there, and mind you, the story even gets probably even a little funnier. The week before that, I had an offer to purchase our company, and this is like basically 20 years old at the time. I went to a Fortune 50 company that was trying to acquire us, and turned down an offer that was outrageous to most people. It's an outrageous, period. I mean, it was crazy, and I literally walked away from the table. Everyone's like, you're basically an idiot. What the hell's wrong with you? And I said, you don't get it, guys. I said, I'm this close to making this thing work, and there's a lot of shit I want to do over my life. For God's sake, I'm not going to quit now. It'd be a hell of a lot more boring. You have all the money in the world, but it actually wouldn't be that fun. And so next thing you know, I went back to the office with barely enough gas to do it. My shoes were leaking. I'll never forget the story. And basically watched a screen and saw orders start piling in and said, holy, and it actually worked. And then next thing you know, I knew it gave me that little bit of a push, and it basically helped cement in the fact is we're actually going to make this thing, and it was cool.
What is the one reason that you think you're most, let me rephrase that, sorry. What is the biggest factor that contributes to your success? That's what I want to say.
Oh man, crazy? I don't know. Without question, so here's the thing. I'm pretty blunt with obviously a lot of things I think, right? So I would say the biggest thing without a question of doubt is intuition. And I don't mean that in an arrogant way by any means. It's if you make 1,000 mistakes, right? You know that you're not going to make those 1,000 mistakes again. So I wasn't afraid to actually screw up, to mess up, and I had no option. I basically said it's sink or swim. There is no backup plan. There's nothing else that's going to make me go. I'm going to do this, basically the shit that actually excites me. I'm going to wake up every day doing that. I'm going to live and breathe it. I'm going to make a lot of mistakes. I'm going to surround myself with some freaking really smart people, and I'm not going to be afraid of actually saying what I believe. And sometimes, at first, it's not easy when you actually need that deal, right? But I was the guy dumb enough and crazy enough, I guess, at the time to say, basically, if you don't like the way I'm building this, sorry, it's not for you, right? And essentially, I stuck with it. So that stubbornness was huge. But at the end of the day, the biggest thing is intuition. It's being able to take all these things that you see with whether business requirements, whether it be opportunity, whether it be these gaps out there, and what your gut tells you, and connect the dots. That was probably without question, it was knowing what not to focus on. That was a big thing. I said, when I wasn't afraid to, there's guys in this room right now that would tell you in 5 seconds that I'm not afraid to change a product direction at the last minute, and just because it doesn't feel right then. It's like we keep doing something, we're doing something, and if it's not right, we'll throw it away. But you have to trust your gut. We've became really damn good with data, but I think there's this huge trend everyone hears about, right? Being data-driven, being data-driven, being data-driven. But if you can't connect the dots, and if you don't understand what the business needs are, or what the requirements are, or anything in between, you're missing the boat. You've got to go with what your intuition tells you. And if you don't have a good intuition sometimes on things, and you're not afraid, if you're afraid to make mistakes, you're not going to go anywhere. So for God's sake, just jump in. That's the key, and you'll figure it out. That's the big thing.
So is that the same advice that you would give now to entrepreneurs who are starting out? I mean, your scope that you're looking at is so much bigger, but we've got younger people or people who are just starting who maybe are looking for some words of advice.
For gosh sake, I'm not one to sit here and try to toot my horn, right? But the reality is, if somebody like me, right, I'm not the smartest guy in the world, if we can get this far with a team that's really damn cool and obviously does some amazing things, there's not a reason in the world anyone can't do it. The difference is, though, is that something inside of somebody is holding somebody back because they're scared of actually falling in and not being able to swim great, right? But I can promise you this, you learn how to swim pretty quick once you actually have to. And the reality is that take that idea that you can't stop thinking about, and I'll take two angles at this. Number one, don't chase it because of the wrong reasons. So if it's because of money, or it's because I have to do this because I'm not gonna be able to make rent next month, so I have to start a business that does X, don't do it. Save yourself the time and save yourself the headache, because you're going to look back over about 5 years and go, why the hell am I doing this every day? And it's not fun. This is not passion to me. This is not something actually that I enjoy that much, right? And it's not fulfilling. Find something that actually, again, back to that thing inside of you, right? It's like, what excites you? What drives you? What is that thing you can't stop thinking about? Grab onto it. Take an idea and literally just start moving forward. You don't have to build a ship. You're not going to build this massive company overnight. For God's sake, I used to have plastic picnic tables. I have plastic ones now with Legos on it, but I used to have plastic picnic tables with my desk. And literally skip from hotel to hotel when I went to a place, right? I went through all the same stuff everyone in the back of their minds thinking, going, how the hell am I going to do this, right? I don't got the money, I don't have the capital, I don't have this or that. Well, if you have the drive and you have the ambition to show up tonight, there's probably a good chance you probably are thinking of doing something pretty cool. So for God's sake, just actually take that initiative to start doing it. Surround yourself with the right people, make mistakes, learn from them pretty quick, don't do it again, and just start moving forward. That's the hardest thing. It's that first step. And once you start doing that, everything else becomes actually pretty easy, I can promise you.
So what's your least favorite part about being an entrepreneur? I'll give you a minute to take a drink there.
Oh man. I would be lying if I told you there's something I absolutely hate. Probably the of everything that we do, I would say the only thing that's maybe not the most I guess you could classify it as not my favorite thing to do would be bean counting, right? It's so being self-funded, we had to figure out how to make money. But how we learned how to make money was we said if we create great things and do great things, we can actually, and the byproduct was money, right? But I would absolutely, without question, say that I'd rather spend most of my time making really cool stuff and being involved, hands-on. Yeah, I guess by definition, I'm somewhat of a micromanager, right? I used to think that was a really bad thing, and then one day somebody I respect a lot said, hey, by the way, Google this name, and Google the name micromanager, and if you do, you're gonna find out really quickly that there's some pretty notable people. I think it was Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, Warren Buffett, Jeff Bezos, and I think Michael Dell are notably some of those out there, right? So it's like you start looking at this stuff, but there's that one component of the financial and money stuff of just living and breathing it every day. If I had to do it that much, I would jump out a window. But doing it in balance, it's not as bad. But that, I'd probably say safely, that's probably not my favorite thing.
And how would you define success for yourself?
That's actually, I think, a pretty easy one. It's walking away at the end of the day going, look what we actually did, not from a company or performance. We were lucky enough to be, I guess, Michigan's fastest growing privately owned company over the last year, and really cool stuff, right? Awesome accomplishment, great, killer, it was awesome. But what really fueled me up was not that. It was more than anything is walking in. I'll never forget it. Years ago, I would literally, this sounds really cheesy, but I remember a certain day I literally laid on the office floor, staring up, going, holy shit, what if I actually make this? And how I couldn't imagine being able to work with the guys like I was working with on a fractional basis, because I had to talk them into working for me when they weren't working for these huge companies because I couldn't afford them full time. And I said, well, if I could work with these guys every day and create the stuff that actually excites us, and most importantly though, this is the fuel though, this is the answer to the question, is walking away going, we were the ones that did that. And that's something where when you create something that is better than the greater good of yourself, that's not a sales pitch. This is not anything more than, I'm telling you, it's the coolest feeling in the world when you literally walk in a place and you see people using products that you're actually creating, and they're going, you wouldn't believe how this made a difference. And then when you actually watch that, that's like rocket fuel. I mean, it's the biggest, craziest thing in the world where I could literally be falling over dead tired, and I'll pop out of my seat, right? And just it gives that energy to go, it's worth it.
What's the worst piece of entrepreneurial advice you've received over the years?
Focus on money. So it's taking. A couple things. First and foremost, don't sell yourself short, right? So maybe you're in a spot in your business. You've already started your business. You're creating things. You're doing things, but you don't have enough capital right now, and you're basically about to sell yourself short to say, you know what, I just can't do it, I'm going to give in, and next you make a decision that maybe is not the best for your business or best for yourself. And it forces you to do something that you don't want to do, right? That's going to take away that thing we talked about earlier. So number one, I would say that. Number two, I would say don't focus on the money. Don't focus on asking people what they want and just building that. Build the things that you actually want. And if you do a great job at it, the money will be such a byproduct, right? And I think the last part is you've already failed if you've actually started thinking you're not going to make it. So literally, it's about surrounding yourself with the right people, but most importantly, the right mindset. I mean, that's I believe 99% of the whole thing is that literally, if you're saying to yourself, I'll give you an example. So if you think about your business, right? This is a pretty simple one, but it's the reason why. Why do you jump out of bed? Why should somebody else give a crap about what the hell you're telling me about? Forget your pitch, forget everything about it. It's not about the features, it's not about the benefits, it's not about anything else. It's if you ever hear on a normal day when I'm not falling over tired, man, the story that when people say, what do you do? I don't even start with, well, we make this, we make that, or do da 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 da, right? It's more about, well, you know what? We got sick of actually seeing how the world was actually this whole word of a funeral, right? You watch people cringe up, and they're like creepy, weird, odd, And next thing you know, we start this whole story of that we're not the only ones that thought it was kind of weird and creepy. So we decided to actually build products that help tell the story of people's lives. And that's where we started. Right now, obviously, six more companies later. But the reason what I'm driving with this is I'm talking about the why. The reason why we did something that no one else was doing. The reason why we got excited about that. The reason why somebody else should actually give a shit between all the noise in their life and all the things they hear about every single day. If they understand the why, people will actually do anything. And that's how you get the best team members. That's how you get the best customers, because they rally behind this vision. So it's like if we're going to sail to an island, right? We point at the island, we let people know this is where we're going. And then essentially we use this wind and the boat and the tide and everything else to actually help us get to that. But if everybody on the whole boat knows that this is the vision, is that this island with sand and paradise and trees and all this kind of stuff, then they're willing to say, oh my gosh, I've got arthritis, I'm sick of Michigan, I'm sick of the weather, I'm sick of this, that, I want to live on a sandy beach, that's my dream. People are willing to do anything to actually get to it. But if you actually looked at them and told them that this whole dream was basically to actually get this treasure chest, people are not, you're going to have a few people saying, yeah, I want the gold. But the reality is you're going to get the best people in the world and the best ideas and the best energy and everything about it when they understand the reason of why you're doing what you're doing, why you believe in it, why your passion is being connected to a whole business. And then essentially the payoff is the treasure chest. And I think that's so important that people understand the whole reason why we exist, why we do what we do. And once you connect that to then the business, the product being as a byproduct of it, that's really the meaning, I think, of making impact.
So, and then on the flip side, so the worst piece of advice was follow the money. On the flip side, what's the best?
I think it's pretty, I've probably said this 10 times, right? Follow whatever you're passionate about, take that and basically run with it. I mean, that's point blank. It's as easy as I think it comes down to it. There's really no science to it. I could try to make up a lot more fancy excuses, but there's, take the things that you can't stop thinking about that you want, that you haven't seen exist, right? Or maybe you've seen fractions of it. Take those things, connect those dots, and make something that actually is worth talking about. And if there's a good chance, if you love it, there's probably about 10 million other people that will too.
What's the one thing you wished you knew about being an entrepreneur before you started this whole venture?
Probably that, I used to believe in unicorns, I think a lot more, right? That just because I could build a great product, that I could build a great company overnight. And I started building, from online counseling. Forbes had an article that predicted we'd be the largest counselor in the world. That's another thing. And at the time, we had success at everything we were doing. And, just kept taking them, like this last year, I basically reinvested, to put it in perspective, about 85% of our cost is reinvested into R&D. About $10 million this year alone. I'll be actually probably significantly more, but last year was $10 million roughly, was actually invested into R&D alone. So just to prove my point of everything I'm saying to you guys, I could have taken, that money could have came out and filled, the pockets of people, and next thing you know, and we could have ran away with it. No, we took the money and we kept reinvesting into future things, not current products even I'm talking about future business units, future products, future things we're doing. 85% of our employees, for instance, are all R&D focused of things in the future that we're building, right? And when you connect the dots of all that kind of stuff, it was that if you build this great team, you build a great product, and you actually make that investment and all that such, that we figured that we could actually end up creating some pretty remarkable things. And what we found from this was that that at the end of the day, it's not the money that drives us, it's not anything more, it's simply that let's build some products that actually is worth talking about, and next thing you know, everything else works. So the question, maybe a little better answer of what's the exact, what are you looking for better, I guess, put it that way. It's been a long day, I'm sorry.
No, there was no better, just what would you let other people know? What does it mean to be an entrepreneur that you think that they should know before they embark on this venture?
Yeah, it's going to take a hell of a lot more time than what you think, right? And by the way, thanks for reminding me. That was a nice way of me saying I forgot the question, and it's been literally a really freaking long day, so I'm not going to kid you guys 5 seconds. No, so it's basically that I would say that, I used to think that it was going to be a lot easier, that I could build this race car, right? And let's call it a product, right? You build a Ferrari race car, next thing you know, you're going to win a lot of races, right? You keep building more Ferraris, next thing you know, you put them on a track, you're going to keep winning. The thing I discounted was, and the equation in this thing that I never thought of, maybe as good as I should have, is that you have to have a freaking really good driver. That's what makes this thing work. It's somebody waking up every freaking day going, I am going to make this company, this product, whatever it is I'm doing, I'm going to make it work no matter what. And if you build a great product but you don't have a great driver, you're not going to win races, point blank. So what I learned is that I had to be extremely disciplined. And I'm obviously a little ADD too, right? So I had to be extremely disciplined to start learning to say no to things. And I can tell you what, that's the hardest challenge that any single person in this room is going to have. It's the discipline of knowing what do you spend your time focusing on. And I'll give you one last little point. I think that's actually a pretty cool one. So we had, years ago, my accounting firm, they're not here tonight, so that I can tell you guys this, it's funny. They used to say, Joey, you got to have your books even cleaner. Joey, this works, but it's a mess, and we got to clean this stuff up, and you got to hire a CFO, and this is like 10, 11 years ago, right? So my theory was, I said, guys, trust me. I said, I understand that, yeah, I have cleaner books, and yeah, it actually cost me less with you guys, so I didn't have to clean the stuff up. I wasn't doing anything wrong. But the point was, is that I kept saying to him, I said, you don't get it. If I could have the best CFO in the world right now, but if I don't have any customers, if I don't have a great product, if I don't have a great product, I have no customers, right? If I don't have any customers, I have no money, and I don't have any CFO at that point. So why don't I take the money that I'm saving and learning, and basically a decision of knowing what do I spend my time, what do I spend my money on, that's going to help create something remarkable, right? First and foremost, I said, let me create the best product in the world. Because if I create the best product in the world, what will happen is that I'm going to create a lot of customers, hopefully, and if I create a lot of customers, I create a lot of revenue. And by the way, I told the accounting firm, when I do that, I'm going to go and I'm going to hire the best CFO in the world. By the way, do you want a job? And next thing you know, a few years later, we ended up basically, doing exactly what we said. And we ended up basically cleaning up and getting our stuff together. But the point was that we had to learn at the time, it's not easy. It's the hardest thing as an entrepreneur, is that you see all these different things in a business that you're looking at going, my God, I wish I could fix that right now, right? You think about it. You see all these little things, right? You pick it apart, you look at something, and next thing you know, if every time you saw a problem in your business, you'd be jumping from one problem to the next problem, and you wouldn't get anything done. So the hardest decision you're going to make is going, what are the actual things that I need to focus on right freaking now that are actually going to get the business to get to that next level? And you're never going to have the business perfect. You're never going to have the best, nothing's ever going to be perfect. I thought I could actually make processes and define all these roles and do all these different things. But at the end of the day, what you really need to do is decide what are the things that are going to basically give you the biggest impact. So, all right, every task you make, ready? It's like, this pretty basic stuff, right? Basic matrix. You measure your level of impact. Is this task I'm going to do right now, is it going to impact a lot of people and make a huge impact, or is it going to make a little impact? Okay. Now, is the energy going into that same task, is it going to take actually a lot of actual time, really hard to do, or is it going to be really easy to do? And that sweet spot is really easy to do that makes a lot of freaking impact, right? I think we all can agree on that. And that's the magic. The hardest thing, and I think the number one thing that anybody can pick up on, and you have to learn how to do this really freaking quick, is what do you spend your time doing? So my point of my story is, spend your time on the stuff that actually is going to make a huge difference. Ignore the stuff that's not going to. Even if you've got $3.5 million tied into a counseling system like I did, right, foolish enough, and you have to decide to put it on ice, that's okay. Because at the end of the day, the idea of something, I think, is only a few percentage points, maybe at most, of actually the business. The execution of it is what you'll do better than anyone in the world. So don't ever think you're going to miss out an opportunity of this crazy idea you have, because at the end of the day, if you have the passion, you have the drive, you have all those things, you're going to do it better than anyone else. So just put on the ice and go to it when you're ready. That's, I think, the easiest way to say it.
How would you define the culture here at Hello Innovation, and what do you do to cultivate that culture?
That's actually a good question, too. So we, probably about 2.5 years ago, we were going through a ton of growth still, right? And we acquired a group of people from a company that was actually phasing out. And the lesson I learned was, this is actually, I'm sharing the stuff that didn't work. So we took, the theory was at the time, holy cow, we get to hire, like these 7 people, right, that are dynamite, that are super good leaders, supposedly. They weren't the bad people at the company that ended up going out of business, but they were a big e-commerce company. And we didn't realize at the time that you take the good and the bad. And essentially, what happens throughout all these different things is that culture becomes more important than ever. So you can have the smartest guy in the room, but if he's not, a jerk, it's not fun for anybody. So what we decided to do was we said, all right, so the most important thing that we can do is, I keep talking about what fuels you from inside, right? So define it. What excites you as a person? All right, so if you think of that first and you understand what excites you and motivates you and drives you as a person, then you connect the next step. And that next step is, all right, let me translate that into a business. And if you can translate that inner thing to that business, then you got one extra step after that. Then it's like, what are the things you stand for? If we know where we're going, right? And that was my point, the island earlier, is that at the end of the day, if you want to scale a company and build a company really big, really fast, you've got to do an unbelievable job. It's really easy when you're small, by the way, because you're all in one small room, right? But when you want to build a freaking amazing company, what you need to do is you need to say, this is where we're going. And basically, everybody with you is going to say, yes, we have arthritis again. We don't want to live in we want the warm weather. We want the beach. We dreamed of it. So they're going to do anything to get to that island at the end of the day. But here's the key, and this is when it comes to culture, is that you have to basically define what you stand for, what are the things you believe in, what is that manifesto, right? What is the actual values, I guess you could say, core values, right, that drive yourself, your business, and decisions. Because if you can get everybody else to multiply that effect, right, of thinking like you, knowing, so if everyone knows where you're going, if everyone actually knows what you stand for, and if everybody knows the things, most importantly, by the way, this is the most important one, the things you don't stand for and never will, so the things they never should do, say, act, or even think of, then you're going to guide 99% of their decisions to actually be as close to you as possible. And that's the point that I think a culture becomes so built upon, is that you need to define yourself, and it's the biggest challenge we have right now as a business, I'll tell you straight up. We have more applicants, I think, than anybody, probably in the area, I would think. Who knows, I don't want to offend anybody in the room, but I can tell you from the people that have seen our numbers on stuff, it's crazy the amount of talent that actually we're fortunate enough to get applying here. Now, here's the bad side, is that we're so damn picky that they not only have to, they fit 3 criteria, right? They've got to have that, can they think quick on their feet and basically get stuff done. They have to actually, on the other side of it, they have to be somebody that's a freaking ridiculously passionate person. We don't really care about the job title. We hate it. We hate red tape. We hate all that stuff. But they have to have passion, because at the end of the day, they're not going to like the company here if they're not crazy passionate. And you're probably going, why the hell is he telling me this, right? So we're open about it. It's either a love or hate. So here's the thing, is that if you're really passionate about something and you want to actually, basically do stuff that others aren't doing, and you have this crazy passion in front of you, you know where you want to go, there's probably a good chance you're going to do anything to get to it. And you're going to have a hell of a lot of fun along the way doing it. And we all know far too well, to build something amazing, there's ups and downs, right? I can look at a few people in here right now, and they know what I'm talking about. It's Juliana, I think, smiling right now. Nacho looks like he wants to strangle me. I think Claudio's back there. Michelle's smiling. There we go. Is that there's those days where, yeah, we do amazing stuff, and yeah, we bump into each other a little bit once in a while, but when you have that passion part, and people want to be the best in the world, they're willing to do anything to do it. So when you buy that book, or you want to send them to a conference, or you want them to better their ability, they're the first one that jumps out of their seat going, hell yeah, I can't wait to do it. Yeah, maybe I didn't hit a home run today, but how do I hit a bigger one, right? Or how do I swing my bat better? And when you have passion, they want to be part of that culture of being challenged, of being better, and that continuous improvement. So a company like us basically doesn't drive them nuts. Because when you want to make somebody better every day and they're not passionate, and it's just a job to them, I'm not going to kid you. Those are the people that actually hate the dashboards that usually are playing on walls, because if you were not that good at basketball and you were shooting hoops like me right now, if we had a scoreboard, well actually right there, and I was throwing basketballs into that net, you're probably going to realize really quickly I suck at basketball. So I'm going to hate the fact that there's a scoreboard above it, because Martin's going to make me look like a fool when he scores 120 and I get about 30. Actually, my girlfriend beat me too. So it's embarrassing. So the point is passion, right? They got to be able to get stuff done. And the last part of it is they have to be a culture fit, meaning they have to believe in the same things we believe in. Because at the end of the day, if they don't do that, you've completely, one bad apple. I watched it. I literally am probably the only guy that's going to admit this to you. I let go of probably, I would say, 15 people when we need to hire 115 people. And over a matter of 6 months. Why? Because I literally could look people in the face and be transparent about it, saying, we made a mistake. We hired some people that maybe weren't the best fit for the company. I'll tell you right now, there's not a single person in this room that I'm looking at that didn't come up to me and thank me. About 2 weeks later, there's a few funny comments saying, I know you're crazy, but I'm never going to doubt you ever again. That we ended up getting rid of the people that were taking the culture to nothing. So we have all this great energy that literally was getting sucked down by people that weren't the right fit. And I'm telling you this because it's okay to make mistakes. I made them. But the key is that I literally can look you in the face and tell you that after we did that, it was the best ever thing that happened in the company. We get 10 times more things done, and the energy literally overnight was explosive. I mean, it was ridiculous. So back to culture, it's everything. It's who you are. It's what you believe in. It's what happens. Mixed with passion and mixed with the right people, you can do anything. I mean, that makes it the hardest thing to hire, though.
So what I'm gathering is, from what you said, that your group is very tight-knit and that you're almost like a family here. So what do you do other than money to compensate your family?
There's a couple, man, geez. A couple things. Number one, we've never turned anybody down for a day off since we started 13 years ago. Never once. We've never looked at clock punching. We could care less. We tell people to get out of the office and actually go home and spend time with your family. If they're passionate, there's a good chance they don't want to leave work a lot of times, by the way. We never have to tell people to work more, or spend more time doing it. And the other thing too is that, for instance, we had a gentleman come from Argentina, and by the way, I suck with the guitar, so I'm not even going to attempt to do this. And I knew that he was actually super big into actually playing music and He loved electrical guitar, and he had to sell it. I heard a quick story. He doesn't even know I know this, but he had to sell his guitar before he actually moved to LA. And essentially, next thing you know, to be able to, to wake up and leave your home country, like a lot of these people in this room right now did, there's nobody that appreciates that more than myself, because it's not an easy thing, right? To leave your family, leave your friends, and leave everything else behind to actually go out there and create stuff that no one's doing. It's like being in Apple in 1982 or 80, or being part of U2 before U2 had a big hit. But at the end of the day, I can tell you that road, that journey, and everything else in between makes making that great song or that big hit record worth it, right? But you don't get to see all the times it took before that. And my point is that people leave a lot of things behind when they actually have to sacrifice things to do freaking amazing stuff. I know we're not easy, we're challenging as hell, but we, at the end of the day, buying little things like this allows him to actually do the things he's passionate about, whether it be that or whether it be a way too expensive little camera thing flying around, walking around that little thing right there that took about 30 seconds to get approval. We spend probably way too much money on things that people are excited about here, but at the end of the day, that's kind of part of our secret sauce, is that, again, you surround yourself with people and tools and things that actually allow people to let them know that you really care about their well-being. You care about how they are as a person. You care about their happiness. Yeah, we know we push people hard, but the best people in the world want to be pushed. At the end of the day, if we allow them to do the things that they want to do and spend that time with their family in balance, I think that there's nothing more for that goes further. And there's one last point, though. So our culture it's defined without question that we can hit we had a webinar a couple months ago that we sold over 3 webinars, 100% of people, and literally it's unheard of. By the way, I've never done this before, so I'd be lying if I told you I did. We had over 100 people in each webinar. We sold probably $7 million worth of product in 3 webinars over 3.5 hours. I'm not telling you that to toot our horn. I'm telling you this because this is literally who we are. We hung up the webinar, and the first thing we said was, we've sold 100% of people, again, on over 3 webinars, which is unheard of. I've never seen it in my life, and I couldn't believe it. I thought it was an error, actually. And next thing you know, the first thing we said was, we gave a high five, we said, shit, what could we have done better, right? And how do we hit a bigger one? And the guy looked at me and he said, what do you mean, how could we hit a bigger one? For God's sake, we got 100% of people. And that's the culture that we drive here, and I think that relates back to the people here, is that even though they know they want to probably throw me out a window sometimes, right, when I'm challenging them and then maybe shooting something down, is that when you end up looking back and you go, look what we did, right? Look what ended up happening at the end of the day, and they know that you care about not just the things that we're doing here, but themselves as a person. It's I think it goes a pretty far way, and the loyalty has helped us a ton. And I can look them in the face and say, you know what, shit, I make a lot of mistakes. We screw up a lot, but for God's sake, they get to know coming in the morning that if everybody here can make a difference. Here's the keys to the car, and let's fix it. And I see a guy salute me back here. I mean, I can't tell you guys enough. I've changed my mentality, by the way, with the business. It's as simple as this. These screens basically now align everybody to where our goal is. The second thing is, I hand it basically, if everyone knows where we're going and what we believe in, what we don't believe in, and what we'll never will do, then we are crazy enough to turn down $15 million like I told you last year at work. And eventually, we actually know that at the end of the day, to bend over and grab some of that opportunity that we lost along the way is well worth it, because the focus of where we're going and the belief in it is far greater at the end of the outcome of where we're going to end up being, hopefully in a few years, than distracting ourselves with it. And then you get to look that person in the face and say, you know what, we make a lot of mistakes, but for God's sake, you know the goal, you know what we believe in, you know what we don't believe in. Here's the keys to the car, drive it. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. Forget the red tape that every other company has. Let's figure out how to take that red tape down. Let ideas collide. We love, chaos is really, at the end of the day, I think there's a lot of people in this room right now that, people would argue with me on this, I think maybe, but if you really think about it, what's the biggest challenge that most of these companies have around here? It's that they literally want, deep down inside of them, there's not a doubt in my mind, they want to go back to the days where they used to have a t-shirt, jeans, and maybe a ripped up shirt on, and they're drinking Red Bull and maybe Mountain Dew and Doritos and pop, whatever you want to call it, right? And sitting in a room with 3-4 guys creating stuff, or girls for that matter, and creating stuff that energy, that whole thing of creating a startup while you're here right now, that's the shit that all these big companies want again. Because the chaos is what drives innovation. So we like to look at it as like this little structured chaos zone, right? We've got bumpers in a bowling alley, but for God's sake, if everyone knows where they're going, and if we give them a scoreboard to show them how good or bad they're doing, for God's sake, they can throw the ball any way they want to, because at the end of the day, they're going to scuff up the car maybe around the corner. They're going to make mistakes, but they're going to learn how to actually friggin' do things, and they feel empowered. That's huge. So empower yourself to make that change and actually do it with people you actually respect. It's a lot more fun.
All right, so after this one, I'm going to open it up to questions on the floor. But my last one for you is, what do you want to be when you grow up?
Oh, shit. You saw my mom and grandma, by the way, it's back there right now. They're probably laughing. My two things. My biggest, actual goal of myself right now is to learn how to balance a hell of a lot better. So I have to keep stepping away a little bit, right? So I told you guys I traded in, taking 6 jobs, the 8 key jobs, and there's no question, right? We need to hire a few more key people so I can get my life back on track a little better. But it's, the big thing is really, there's not a thing in my life I wouldn't do more right now other than be able to spend a little bit more time with my family and girlfriend and obviously friends. And that's priceless, right? There's a price you pay for everything, and the price I've paid is time. It's something I can't get back. At the end of the day, there's not a thing in the world I'd rather do differently than what we're doing. Now, obviously, I'd like to do the things we're doing a little faster, right? I'm not going to kid you for 2 seconds. But, the thing I've learned, the old me used to be about 10,000 times a little more aggressive and believed in unicorns, like I told you guys. But now it's like, you learn from burning your hand, right? You learn from making mistakes. The only difference is now is I want to basically be able to do that maybe with a little bit more balance and time and the connecting the dots of that spoke I told you guys about. We started at end of life, now we're working our way back to the time baby's born. I can promise you this, if you think what we're doing right now is pretty damn cool, you have no idea what the hell's coming next. It's gonna be pretty cool. So that's what I want to fulfill. That's what I want to do.
All right, let's give a big round of applause. Anyone have any questions? Eleanor?
So you mentioned that you have core values, and I was wondering what they were.
All right, so get shit done is one of them, right? Making sure that being disruptive. So that's a huge thing. So disruptive is a big thrown around word, right? So we've been disruptive by design since I was a little kid. I think that it's down to the core of doing things different and challenging everything. If you challenge enough things, right, in life, if you have no money, right, to start a business, right, good example, you want to create something new, you've got to figure out a really creative way to do it, so that's kind of how we tie to that. The other thing is actually being transparent. We don't hide a single thing here, and I wish you guys could have seen the dashboards, I keep saying this, but the last time we had an event here, by the way, we had a guy that was kind of creepy. He was taking photos of every single dashboard. It was getting a little weird. Then he made a comment to me, and asked me how much money I make. So there's a little strategy of why I did take some of this stuff down, but I didn't want to give people the wrong impression of like, hey, look at us, look how great we're doing. The other thing is too is not being afraid to just have brute force and blow through walls. That's because you're going to make mistakes, and if you're not screwing up and messing up and scuffing up your knees and elbows a little bit along the way, you're probably not moving fast enough. And the other big one is, which I think is probably almost the most important, is doing everything you do because of that inner passion, what is it that fuels you? So we'll hire people not based on a job or not based on a title or anything of that matter. It's something that we've done for a long time, is that if we find somebody amazing, we hire them, we figure out a place for them to go. And the other point, this is two answers to your question though. We actually did another thing that was interesting, is that we always ask people here at the company, and this is how part of the culture that makes it what it is that there's not a day that goes by that we don't ask somebody, what is it that you'd rather be doing right now? So literally, we're always watching people. It's a sickness, right? Of going, are they doing really what they want to do the most of everything, right? Is this really their dream? And if it's not their dream, we try to figure out every single way possible to get that person doing it. Because it becomes, if they're doing the things they want to do, they're doing a hell of a lot better job at it. And the next thing you know, your churn rate's a lot better. Now back to your last ones, the values-wise. The other thing too, I'd probably say, of core values, there's a whole, by the way, we're actually still building off our core values. We've got this whole manifesto. If anyone wants a copy of it within a few months, we're more than happy to send it around. It's actually really damn cool. And I would say core value-wise, which ones did I not go through yet? So we've got disruptive, we have passion, we have basically challenging conventional wisdom, we have, what else am I forgetting on this end? Is there anything else that's jumping out to you? Or you're on your phone too, so you're probably in space right now.
She's live tweeting and live tweeting.
Yeah, there we go.
So, no, I would say definitely number one, get shit done. Good is the enemy of great. Just tell me that one.
Yeah, actually, I was about to get to that, but good is the enemy of great, right? You just heard it from Rochelle, so I'm going to be repeating this. And I tell you what, I'll leave you guys in suspense a little bit because there's some cool things I don't want to let out of the bag, actually 100%, because we took a completely different approach actually with how we're building our manifesto. It's pretty cool. And if I tell you guys right now, it's not going to look half as cool when you actually see it. But it's unique. But
all right, any other questions? Okay, way over in the
So you've reinvented your world and the world that surrounds you at least 7 times with the 7 different ventures you've kind of gone into. At what point in each venture did you kind of sit there, and maybe you were in your office, maybe you were lying on the floor, you kind of mentioned several moments. At what point did you kind of sit there and I did, this is exactly what I wanted it to be, and maybe it hasn't gotten there yet, but at what point can you sit back and say I did everything I set out to do, I'm going to go further than that, and then were you around people, were they able to kind of sharing that with you, and what was kind of the reaction for it?
So I would almost compare it to Christmas, right? It's probably the most fun thing. Think of when you were a kid, right? And next thing you know, you put together this Christmas list, and you just can't wait to get that new toy, right? And then eventually you get it, and you're really happy. But probably the coolest part about that whole experience is the anticipation, right? You anticipate this world, you imagine this world in your mind, right? You convince yourself of where you're going to go, and you're not going to do anything more than anything less than getting there. I would say that probably the best way I can explain that is that there's never been a moment yet where I've really, walked away with going, hey, look at us, this is great, holy shit, we made it, this is crazy. There's definitely been moments where, walking away going, holy cow, this is real. It's funny, the funniest part of the whole story is there's not probably a week that goes by, there's a few people I can think of that remind us to go, dude, do you ever think that we'd go this far? A couple of years ago, I'll give you a 2-second story. We had a guy fly in on a jet. That's a pretty famous guy. I don't want to drop names because we're being recorded, but everybody in this room would know. And basically went to dinner with us and said, I'm thinking in the back of my mind going, holy cow, why would this guy want to go to dinner with me? And that's no BS. And it was probably one of the most humbling, cool things, right? Next thing you know, he was at dinner, by the way, with Steve Jobs about 6 months earlier before Steve Jobs passed away. And I got to hear about that the whole night. It was actually pretty intriguing. But the president and all this kind of stuff. It was a crazy story. But the point is, I'm sitting at this table and the guy looks at me and says, I'm thinking, right, I can't wait to pick this guy's brain and ask him a million questions. And he looks at me and says, would you be interested in being on our board? I know you didn't show up to New York, basically to New York, one of their offices. When I was invited to, I sent some other people. It's an actually embarrassing story. I sent 2 other people from the company. Next thing you know, I found out I was being asked to be on their board, and probably would have been actually pretty boring. So I actually looked the guy in the face and said, nah, that wouldn't probably be for me. And the next thing you know, I'm looking at the guy and I said, he goes, well, I'm here because I want to pick your brain on how the hell you actually did some of this stuff. And I'm thinking, you got to be kidding me. And we walked away, and I'll never forget it. I literally had a hard time sleeping that night, and because it's a pretty humbling thing, right? When you've got this person that's built an empire, and the people he surrounds himself with looking at you going, I want to learn from you, and for God's sake, I'm not going to kid you for 2 seconds. I literally am thinking in the back of my mind going, I don't know what even to tell this guy, because I can't even imagine how much more this guy knows than what we've learned in a matter of months on one of the businesses we were doing, and it was pretty cool. But no, when you're caught up in the moment and you're just doing it, it becomes the monumental shift I think that you're asking for is when I had to wake up every day wondering how the hell I'm going to pay for guys, to actually their paycheck, and for God's sake, figuring out every single way possible to make their, them actually be able to cash their check. That wasn't as fun. When I got to a point though where I didn't have to worry about money, the level of, I would say, innovation, the level of actually, this is a lot more fun, was pretty damn cool. And then the other part of it is that there's no question, there's a confidence booster when companies, want to compliment you or ask you, pick your brain, look at you as the expert. And the other thing that's helped us along the way too is that, I think for confidence is that we've had a lot of companies, there's not a week that goes by that we don't have 1 or 2 companies trying to acquire us. And to be quite honest with you, I'm probably the worst relation guy in the world for companies that want to acquire us, because I literally have no interest, and it drives them nuts. And it's not a game, it's not anything more. To be quite honest with you, it's that I don't feel that I've actually fulfilled everything I want to do in life. That's why I haven't sold. I don't have an interest. It's not the money that makes me tick. I want to walk away at the end of the day going, look at the things we connected, and look at the world we changed, right? And how we did this, because it's that story that can go on for generations where people are like, look what these guys did. That's when it's worth it. And that's we're nowhere near that yet. And at least we feel like it.
there a question over here?
Well, if you're corporate culture, how do you minimize groupthink and perfectionism? That the way you're driving this, your culture,
Yeah.
how would you prevent that from really causing everything to come to complete stop?
Great question. The first thing we do though is we ban one of the words you said, corporate. So we're everything. We wake up every day going, how do we actually never become a big, huge corporation that feels like that, right? We're way too lean right now. I'm not going to kid you for a second. We need a lot more people. Again, we've got over 100 openings, and we create small focus teams. We try to make sure that we create water cooler innovation, call it what you want, ideas colliding. We've moved desks nonstop throughout here. We try to figure out how to foster, that collaboration. We have tools. We're actually building a tool right now that's going to allow the world to communicate differently. It's how do you put that energy? How do you care? And by the way, I think the second part of your, the question you're asking becomes a lot. You're going to have to ask me this hopefully in a few more years because the bigger you get. In all fairness, it becomes a hell of a lot more tougher because it's a lot easier when you actually can control the environment of around you. But the problem is if you define the culture, if you define those values, the beliefs, and everybody you have here, if you make a decision that they fit all three of those boxes. They have passion, they get shit done, and they actually are a great culture fit. If you do that, then they're going to carry that voice, that energy, and everything else is basically in those decisions. They multiply yourself. And that's where we try to actually say, how do we cut red tape? How do we eliminate all the hurdles somebody has to jump through? How do we make it so people can actually get things done? And by the way, if they have a dashboard, they know the score, and they know what they're doing right and wrong, then we toss them the keys and we say, drive the car how you want to. At the end of the day, win. I tell people all the time, in business, I think the biggest thing about a business is that people, they overcomplicate this stuff. It's really, seriously, this is so basic right now. They overcomplicate a business. When you really think about all these things that people think of in a day, right, in a decision, they take all these different metrics, they take all these different things, and they make these huge, drawn out conversations and things about, basic fundamentals. And when you really, I think the biggest lesson I've learned, and it sounds crazy to say this, is when people come to my office now, they'll see I'm a huge advocate, and one of the products that we're building is a hobby right now that's kind of fun for us. Two things that relate to your question is, number one, we're building flags that go up electronically. We have a process that basically, it's a fun little thing we built. Claudio back there, by the way, I got to motivate him to get this thing done even faster, right? He's working his butt off from Italy. Let's give it up to Claudio. Woo woo! All right, this is a tough crowd right now, by the way. So we're building these flags because we want to make it so that every time somebody walks up to a desk, for instance, that when they're in a focus mode, we're creating pockets. So the theory is, by the way, we're still tuning this, so don't beat me up too bad on trying to explain this. But the idea is that we're creating pockets of basically different groups. So essentially, one of the problems that we figured out was the ping pong table that a lot of people are leaning on right now is a sweet thing for the office. We play ping pong probably way too much. But it's not great when there's people working next to it, right? So next thing you know, you're interrupting people. So what do we learn? We're taking 2 additional floors right now in the building. And what we're doing now is we're building these quiet and focus zones on different time areas. So basically, depending on where somebody's walking in the office or what they're doing, there's different zones of the office that actually, for instance, from like 8 to 11 o'clock in the morning, we know people can't concentrate any further than that for dead focus, where they're going to basically be in a zone where all they're doing is there's no interruptions, there's nothing more than it is quiet, they are in a zone, and they are focused. And the next thing you know, you might go to the other area, and these people upstairs are having a blast playing ping pong, playing electric guitar, they're doing things because they're on a different time zone right now, right? So essentially, we create this focus. And then what we're doing with the flags is that it actually we're building software that reads the process of everything somebody's doing. So if somebody's a designer, we know that your productivity is Photoshop, is creating wireframes, is doing user flows, et cetera, et cetera. So essentially, we take the process that's happening on your computer, and we can say, hey, if he's doing that, flag goes up and says, "Get the hell away from me!" Right? It says something else actually, but I'm not going to repeat it. And if they're actually in the time zone where they're like, "Okay, I can have meetings now." So essentially, we create meeting blocks so everyone knows that my interruptions happen from 1 o'clock to 4 o'clock every day, or 2 days a week, I should say. That essentially you try to create those areas where I have my focus times, I have my actual interruption time. And it helps us not have that over corporate environment. And then next thing you know, but by the way, the flags not only shoot up on everyone's computer, but it also will display on every dashboard. So you're not going to jump out of your seat going, I need to interrupt that person, because at the end of the day, what fuels people is getting stuff done. And the more productive we can make them, the more that they can do the things that they want to do, it's the less corporate environment. And that's, you know, one small example of, I think, the thing that we're trying to do to drive, you know, the culture here.
Great. Well, I want to thank you again for being so generous with your time and your space. And I want to thank Phoebe and Rochelle and everybody else here for letting us crash and help us out so much, get everything together.
By the way, thank you to yourself as well and Startup Grind, Rochelle, Phoebe, and the rest of the guys from and girls from Hello Innovation. You guys did an awesome job. There's a lot of people too. Phoebe's dad was even helping out, her husband. I think they all got dragged in this, but there's a lot of people that obviously put this together. And honestly, from all of us here, thank you so much. We're happy to take part in it. And stop back if you guys ever get a chance. You know, we're gonna have a lot more events as well, and obviously hope to support you guys and everything you guys are doing. You know, what you guys are doing and what, you know, pops you out of your seat on a, you know, this Thursday night. I'm sure you could be doing other things. Seriously, it's humbling, it's awesome, and I hope, you know, I know I'm a little tired and I completely apologize to you guys, but just being transparent to you that, you know, the things that you guys do and watching other businesses, you know, flourish and put Detroit freaking on the map and showing everybody that, for God's sake, you doubt us, look what happened now, right? That's what the thing is that pops me out of bed right now when it comes to Detroit. And for God's sake, looking at everybody here, hopefully I gave you guys a little something to look at this guy and say, hey, if this crazy fool can do it, for God's sake, I know I can, right? And by the way, the guy with Google Glasses back there, it's those things at first, I was a little intense. You like them? Oh, yeah. It's like, I thought it was RoboCop at first. Next thing you know, I saw him coming through and I was like, oh my gosh, man, this is a little intense. See, but thank you guys, seriously, very awesome. But thanks for the great event and awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.